The air in Charleston. The air in Charleston, South Carolina, was thick, not just with the damp salt spray from the harbor, but with a tension so palpable it seemed to crackle around the gaslights of Meeting Street. It was December of 1860, and every soul in the city, from the planters in their silk waistcoats to the dockhands unloading barrels of indigo, knew the center could not hold. Elias Thorne, a man whose family name was inseparable from the rich, dark soil of the Low Country, adjusted the heavy velvet lapel of his coat. At 28, Elias was handsome in the severe Southern fashion, with a clean jawline and eyes the color of Spanish moss. His family owned one of the largest rice and Sea Island cotton plantations outside the city, and to him, the cause of secession was not merely political, it was personal, ancestral, and sacred. He stood on the balcony of the St. Cecilia Society Hall, the music of a cotillion swelling behind him, a mocking soundtrack to the impending disaster. Below, his sister, Clara, a woman of sharp wit and guarded melancholy, smiled politely at a naval officer. Elias watched the officer, a Lieutenant Davies, a staunch fire-eater who spoke of nothing but honor and cannons, and felt a chilling certainty. "They will not suffer us to leave in peace, Clara," Elias murmured, turning from the festive scene. Clara, 24, and possessed of an independent spirit that Charleston society often found tiresome, excused herself and joined her brother. Her gaze was not on the dancers, but out toward the dark harbor, where a silent, menacing silhouette lay anchored. "The harbor is choked with talk of war, Elias, and Mother fears Davy's intentions more than Lincoln's. You should listen to her for once." "Davy speaks the truth," Elias countered, his voice low but firm. "Lincoln's election is an act of war against our way of life. They scorn our institutions and call us villains. Secession is survival, Clara. We have simply withdrawn from a pact that was broken by the North's treachery. And what of the young men who have already left home to join the cadets at the Citadel? Survival is one thing, Elias, but this fervor, this excitement for battle, it feels like madness." Elias placed a reassuring yet possessive hand on her shoulder. "Madness will be necessary, sister. We must be ready to defend what is ours. South Carolina has already dissolved the Union. Now we wait for the fool in Fort Sumter to decide if he will be a martyr." He was referring to Major Robert Anderson, the Union commander occupying the formidable sea fort that guarded the entrance to Charleston Harbor. Every newspaper headline, every drunken toast, every prayer whispered in the city revolved around the isolated stone bastion. It was the linchpin, the undeniable symbol of federal authority standing proud in the heart of the new Confederate nation. Part 2. The View from the Wall. 100 yards of icy, restless water separated Elias Thorne from the man who stood as his inevitable enemy. Sergeant Thomas "Tom" Callahan, a veteran artilleryman from County Cork by way of Boston, stamped his feet against the biting December wind atop the ramparts of Fort Sumter. At 35, Tom was built like a granite monument, square, sturdy, and stubbornly immovable. His face, etched with scars from Mexican war shrapnel, gave him a permanent scowl that hid a profound exhaustion. He wasn't fighting for abolition, nor did he truly understand the nuances of states' rights. Tom Callahan fought for the flag. He fought for the oath he had taken and the pay that kept his wife and 3 children fed in the crowded tenements of South Boston. "They're watching us, Sarge," Corporal Finnerty, a lanky young man from Pennsylvania, shivered, clutching his carbine. Tom didn't need to look through the spyglass to know it. The city across the water was a constant, hostile audience. He could practically feel the 1,000 eyes tracking their meager movements, the changing of the guard, the hoisting of the colors, the pathetic attempts to reinforce the walls. "Let them watch," Tom growled, spitting a stream of tobacco juice over the parapet. "They think we'll starve out or run home to our mothers. They don't know Anderson. Major Anderson will stand until the stone crumbles." Their situation was precarious. The Carolinians had already seized Fort Moultrie and Castle Pinckney, surrounding Sumter with batteries and heavy guns. The small garrison was outnumbered, undersupplied, and, worst of all, facing the psychological burden of being the singular island of blue in a raging sea of gray. Tom pulled a folded, much-read letter from his breast pocket, a letter from his wife. "Tom, the news is all bad here. Everyone is choosing sides. They call you a hero, but I just want you home. Be careful, my love. Don't let them make you a martyr for a fight you don't even belong to." He rubbed his thumb over her signature. He belonged to the fight now. The political argument was moot. The military reality was everything. He looked toward the shoreline, where Elias likely stood, oblivious to the freezing soldier looking back. They were two men, separated by 100 yards of water, bound by a shared, impending tragedy. The new Secretary of War, Cameron, he promised the Star of the West would be here with supplies, Finnerty whispered, his teeth chattering. "It'll be here when it's here, Corp. Until then, you secure that cannon and pray your powder stays dry. Because when they start, it'll be a hell we won't forget." Part 3. The Inevitable Dawn. Months passed in this deadly stalemate. Secession became a cascade. Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas joined South Carolina to form the Confederate States of America. Elias Thorne, now commissioned as a captain in the newly formed Confederate artillery, was stationed on Morris Island, overseeing the installation of the most powerful guns trained on Sumter. His initial patriotic fervor had settled into a grim resolve. On the night of April 11, 1861, Elias received the order. A final demand for surrender had been sent to Major Anderson and flatly refused. His commanding officer, General Beauregard, a man whose ambition eclipsed his patience, gave the final word. "Captain Thorne, at 4:30 in the morning, the signal shot will be fired from Fort Johnson. You will commence fire immediately after." Elias stood in the pre-dawn darkness, the sand cool beneath his heavy boots, the scent of sulfur already stinging his nostrils. He thought of Clara, back in Charleston, likely awake and listening. He thought of the cost, and he pushed it all down, replacing doubt with duty. Across the water, Sergeant Com Callahan was asleep, dreaming of Boston rain, when the first shell arced high over the harbor. The signal shot was fired at 4:30 a.m. It was a single, defiant boom, a declaration of independence and war all in one. Tom awoke instantly, the sound resonating in his bones. He grabbed his trousers, his rifle, and sprinted toward his post. Then the world shattered. Elias's battery opened fire. The cannonade was immediate, deafening, and relentless. 34 Confederate guns rained shot and shell upon Fort Sumter. Tom Callahan reached his station just as a 20-pound solid shot slammed into the masonry near the barracks, shaking the entire foundation. Dust and pulverized stone filled the air. "To your posts! We return fire! Load with grape and canister!" Major Anderson's voice, calm and clear despite the chaos, cut through the noise. Tom grabbed a heavy cartridge, his hands moving with practiced, desperate speed. He sighted the nearest Confederate battery on Morris Island, knowing Elias Thorne was likely there. For 34 hours, the bombardment continued. The North and the South were no longer separated by words, laws, or political ideals. They were separated by cannon smoke and the lethal flight of iron. On the second day, fire broke out in the barracks of Fort Sumter. Tom and his comrades fought the flames while simultaneously trying to keep their guns firing. The sheer weight of the Confederate barrage was too much. Finally, at 2:30 p.m. on Saturday, April 13th, Major Anderson, having exhausted his ammunition and seen his fort reduced to a smoldering ruin, ordered the flag lowered. Elias Thorne watched through a field glass as the stars and stripes slowly descended. A great triumphant roar erupted from the Confederate batteries and from the thousands of citizens who had gathered on the rooftops of Charleston to watch the spectacle. The South had won.
Tom Callahan stood amid the rubble, his face blackened by soot, his ears ringing from the constant percussion. He watched the Confederate forces row out to accept the surrender. He had lost, but the war, he knew, had only just begun. The divided house was now engaged in a struggle to the death.
Waterfront, waving scarves and cheering the gray-clad soldiers who had won the first bloodless victory. They looked like fools, celebrating their own coming doom. They have fired on the flag. They have fired on the oath, Tom thought, the words burning away the exhaustion. His fight was no longer just for the pay or the oath, but for vengeance for the flag dragged down in defeat. He saw a great, deep moral wrong in the celebration across the water. The South had insulted the Union, and that insult had to be answered with iron and fire. The steamer carried them into the open ocean. Tom looked down at his rough, calloused hands, the hands of an artilleryman, capable of destruction. He would not be going home to Maggie and the children yet. He resolved to re-enlist the moment he touched northern soil. The fight he hadn't belonged to in December now owned him completely. "We'll be back, won't we, Sarge?" Finnerty whispered, his young face streaked with tears and soot. "We will, Corp," Tom affirmed, his voice a low rasp. "We will be back for that piece of ground, and next time we won't be in a stone cage."